What up, nerds? My name is Leslie. Welcome back to the Nerdy Narrative, a channel where I talk about all the things that I read. Something that I don't do very often, I think I've only done it a couple of times on the channel, is unhaul books. I am a book collector, a book hoarder. I like books. I like being surrounded by books. I like smelling books. I like looking at books, touching books, just books. And you gotta have books to be able to do that. Since I buy more books than I let go of, space is limited. What do? You make room. And so I went through my shelves, and a lot of these books that you're gonna hear me talk about today, if you've been a fan of the channel for a while, you have heard me say on more than one occasion, I will never reread these books. And when you think about it, if you're not going to reread them, then they're just taking up space. And other books I'm letting go of because I purchased a special or limited or signed edition, and I like it better than the old one. I know that when I reread it, I'm going to want to read my shiny new copy, and there's no sense in hanging on to the old one anymore, not when it can go to the hands of another bookworm. So if you're interested in any of these books, by the time this video goes live, I will have them on my Pango bookshop if you want to pick them up. The link is down in the description box below. Let's get into it. The first 4 books are all part of the Dresden Files series. This is books 1 through 4, and they're those weird mass market paperback size. This is the strangest size for a book I've ever seen in my life. Now, the later books in the series I have in hardback because I've been reading them as they come out. The beginning of the series, you cannot get the hardbacks unless you want to pay $200 for them because they're out of print and they're apparently not going to print anymore. So I've been replacing them with the Orbit copy. That's a normal size. They're the UK paperback version. I've been getting mine from Blackwell's, and I have them linked down in the description box below. So since I've been doing that, there's no sense in holding on to these anymore. So they're going to a new home. The next book that I'm going to be letting go of is Bitter Sun by Beth Lewis. When I was going through my shelves behind me, the question I was asking myself at each title was, will I reread this book? Am I excited to reread this book? What is my gut punch? I mean, I was basically Marie Kondoing my shelves. Does this spark joy, and will it spark more joy in the future as a reread? If my initial reaction was no, or there was no reaction, then it's time to go. This was a wonderful, wonderful story. I absolutely loved it. But as it is with most thrillers and mysteries, once you have solved it, oftentimes there's not the urge to go back and reread that one. Next up, The Coward by Stephen Aryan. The only reason I'm letting this beautiful book go is because I bought the signed limited edition from the Broken Binding. That is the only reason. It is still a gorgeous, gorgeous cover. It has a beautiful story inside. So I highly encourage you to pick this one up if you haven't already. And here I am turning a book on haul into a recommendations video. So let's put that down. Move on. Next one that I'm going to be letting go of is Redwood and Wildfire by Andrea Hairston. This was a DNF for me. I didn't finish it because I don't know what in the world the author was trying to accomplish with the story. This is one of those cases where the synopsis, the book description, gave me expectations of what I could find reading this one. And I was halfway through the book and none of those had even started being met. I was very confused as to what was going on. So I DNF'd it. I have zero plans, zero inclinations of trying to pick that one up again, though I am going to give the author a try with some of her other stuff. Next up, I'm just going to go ahead and finally let this one go. Straight On Till Morning by Liz Braswell. It's a retelling of the story of Peter Pan with the twist that Captain Hook was the one that brought Wendy to Never Never Land. I don't know if it's because I heard this story one way for 40 years and with the twist, it just didn't sit right to me. It didn't feel right. It felt wrong. I don't know if it was that or if this author is just not one that I jive with on their writing style. But I'm just going to let that one go. I'm going to quit hanging on to it. We have another case of I bought these special editions. There are now editions of this trilogy that you can get that have cover art by one of my favorite designers, Daniel Serra. All 3 of them match, like when you put them all together, they make one scene. So I'm going to let go of the 2 paperbacks that I have of Juniper and Tome. I never got the 3rd one in this trilogy. If I had gotten the paperback Scorched to finish this one out, I might would have kept it because I do really enjoy these covers. But I gotta quit doing that. I got to let go of some of these books. I don't need multiple copies, she says, knowing she has like 3 copies of all of Joe Abercrombie's first law books. Next, I have the first black edition of Death Note. It's volume 1. I believe there are 13 total. They are way too expensive to collect. This is a series that I have read most of and I enjoyed until it got to a certain point where it was just like perpetuating. Like, this story didn't need to go on that long. I lost interest in it for a second time. I'm not going to hang on to this one, even though it's beautiful and I love it. I'm not going to collect the rest of the series. There's no reason to hang on to this one, so it's got to go. I'm also going to let go of this copy of Round Ireland with the Fridge by comedian Tony Hawks. And as you can see, I got this one from Thrift Books. I wanted to reread it a few years ago. Actually, a couple of times I picked this one up to reread it. And I've read it 3 times now. It's hilarious, but I've read it enough. It's a nonfiction account. I've read it enough that I've got the story pretty well learned. So when I was looking at it, I thought, am I going to ever reread that again? Probably not. So it's going. The next one I'm going to let go of is The Inheritance of Arcadia Divina. This book took a while to win me over. I did enjoy it. After I thought about it and talked about it for a while with friends, I did end up liking it more than I initially thought when I finished it. I was really honed in one aspect of the story that had my attention. It's not one that I'll ever pick up and read again, even though it has the most beautiful cover. I wish I loved it more than I did. So Arcadia Divina is getting the book boot. If you've been around the channel for a while, you probably expected to see this one. I actually thought I had gotten rid of it a while back. I found it hidden at the bottom of a stack of books that I had for another project. And I was like, oh, you're still here? Why are you still here? I did not like it. Even though it's Stephen King and I collect Stephen King, I'm not going to hang on to anything I will never read again and didn't enjoy. So yeah, that one is good one. The next is a duology that never should have been a duology. Ernest Cline's Ready Player One and Ready Player Two. The first book is good, but I actually like the movie better. So when I got to these books, I was like, there's no way in hell I will ever read this one again. This one, I would just rather watch the movie again than read the book, so I'm gonna let go of those 2. I also have a World of Warcraft book here, Shadow Rising. I read this one 2 or 3 years ago as part of a project with the Hungry Bookworm where she chose some of my TBR books for me to read. And while I understood and followed along because I played this game for years and years, it was the most recent book in the series. I don't have a single one of the other books. I've never read any of the other books. I have no intention of reading any of the other books. So is there a reason to keep this one? Nope. I'm finally letting go of the Lotlands trilogy by Jonathan French. I absolutely love The Grey Bastards. I loved the second book, The True Bastards, but the third book was so boring and a disappointment to be the end of the trilogy. Because of this book, I will never reread this trilogy. And I thought about keeping the first 2 and just getting rid of the third one, but then I thought, will I reread these books or is it forever tainted by what I know the author does in this one? And the answer was probably not. So I am going to be letting those go. We're going to say bye-bye. And the last book that I have here is A Very German Christmas. If you have been around the channel for the last few years, my friends over at the Codex Cantina, we read short stories at Christmas time every year from a different country. And we like to look into it a little more. How does that country celebrate Christmas? What are some of their traditions and foods and things they like to eat? And after 3 years of doing this, I have learned something. It seems that the United States are the only ones that have happy Christmas stories. That or all of the stories that this company that puts us together, they can only find tragic, sad tales that are free for them to put in a collection. They've all been sad, tragic, depressing. I don't want to own these books. And I learned after doing it for a year, I'm just going to pick up the digital copy because it is much cheaper and I don't feel bad for paying less for something I will never reread again, at least so far. Maybe this year will be the year that changes. You'll have to check back around Christmas time. I'm trying to remember what country we picked this year. Was it France? I don't remember. I guess we'll find out come December. Y'all, that is gonna wrap up this one for me today. These are all the books that I'm unhauling. Again, they will all be listed on my PangoBooks shop. I have really enjoyed using that app. It's so easy. If you've been interested in using PangoBooks but you haven't looked into it, I did make a video where I started my shop just to show you how easy it was or was not. I'll have that linked up in the cards down in the description box below if you want to take a look. I love how easy it is to use the app and the fact that I don't have to leave my house to go mail these books. That is it for me today. I hope you all enjoyed watching this video and maybe it's encouraged you to go through your shelves to see what you can let go of to make room for something else. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll catch you in the next one.